You're watching one of the most high-tech wars in history. And somehow, weapons from the 1940s are still shaping the battlefield. In Ukraine, artillery crews are dragging an American M114 howitzer out of storage, a gun older than most of the soldiers firing it, and using it on the front line today. By every modern standard, this weapon should be obsolete. But in the mud, cold, and constant drone surveillance of Donbass, it's surviving where newer systems are getting hunted and destroyed. At the same time, Ukraine has done something that seems completely backwards. They took their most advanced artillery system, the Bohdana, and stripped it down into a towed gun. In this video, we go to the zero line to compare the American relic and the Ukrainian prototype, and explain why, in this war, simplicity is keeping crews alive.
Gun. Fire.
So when the fog rolls in, that's when the action kicks off?
Yeah, and the thicker it gets, the crazier it becomes. Frosty days are coming now, and honestly, there's almost nothing we can do. Over the last week, we lost 5 civilian vehicles. Thank God all the guys are alive. They're working both at long range, about 20 kilometers, roughly 12.4 miles, from the front line. And when it comes to moving in, driving up to the position, there are waiters sitting at every intersection. Pretty much every intersection is mined.
Today, Army TV is working with the 141st Separate Mechanized Brigade. We're heading out to the guys fighting with the American M114 howitzer. By the way, the crew has the exact model that saw combat back in Vietnam. So, we've arrived at the firing positions of the 41st Separate Mechanized Brigade. The guys warned us, when we get out of the vehicle, watch every step. The Russians are heavily mining the area now, with PTM anti-tank mines and petal mines.
The M114 gun, in my opinion, is an underrated artillery firepower system. This weapon actually dates back to the 1940s. This specific gun took part in combat operations in Vietnam. I think it helped the Americans back then. Now it'll help us a bit too. What you see in front of you is a real treasure, capable of hitting the enemy with 155mm rounds at a distance of almost 15 kilometers, around 9.3 miles. That's its maximum range, unfortunately, and that's really its only drawback. Since it arrived here, it has already fired around 300 rounds. So far, there haven't been any issues with it. Towed artillery, in my opinion, has a big advantage over self-propelled guns. Yes, it's not as mobile, but especially in a positional war, if the crew can properly and quickly prepare firing positions, we can conduct displacements. This gun has much greater survivability compared to SPGs. Causing it any critical damage is extremely difficult, but that's also thanks to what you see. Look at the shelter we're in, how many camouflage nets we use to stay alive. People say infantry digs a lot. In my opinion, artillery digs twice as much now, just to survive. Move it, move it. The wide wheels allow it to be transported normally. It doesn't act like a plow behind the prime mover. And I'd say it's pretty well adapted to harsh weather conditions. It doesn't ice up. Once again, the sighting equipment is very well made. I used to work on the FH-70, and there you had problems. Water leaks in, frost hits, and the sights just fail. Here, everything is much simpler, rougher, almost crude. In today's conditions, that's a huge plus. There aren't many guns like this left. You can see the barrel. There's no muzzle brake on it. That's an advantage for us because the propellant gases don't blow out sideways and don't ruin our camouflage. That's a massive difference compared to Soviet systems, where everything blasts out to the sides. Branches burn, vegetation ignites, and so on. Here, that problem doesn't exist. The powder flash is far less visible, much less fire when firing. And even by muzzle flash alone, it's extremely hard to detect this gun's position.
Rotation of your gun crews. How many guys are sitting on position? How many are resting? And has this become more difficult now compared to 2022?
Look, it's become a lot harder, directly harder for us. Before it used to be 6 days working, 3 days resting, then 8 on, 4 off. Now it's 10 on, 5 off. And it happens that the guys can spend 12, even 14 days on the positions. It all depends on the weather. We might plan to move after 10 days, but that road can easily turn into a one-way trip. Before any logistics movement, we carefully break down the route we're going to take. We know the dangerous spots along the way, places where something nasty is most likely waiting for us. Sometimes someone goes on foot first, walking for kilometers, checking whether there are waiters and where they might be sitting. Or sometimes you just cross yourself, put your faith in God, and drive. Gun. Fire.
Support the channel with a like and subscribe.
Gun.
Fire.
Greetings to all free people. Today is a premiere, the 2P22 Bohdana BG gun, or simply put, the towed Bohdana gun. Before we introduce you to its combat crew, we'll show you how it works in combat and explain all its features. A short story about how this gun came to be. At the moment when Ukraine began mass-producing the self-propelled versions of the Bohdana, it turned out that more guns themselves, the barrels, breeches, all the core components, were produced than there were chassis available in Ukraine to mount them on. So the question came up, why not make a towed version of the Bohdana? First, the towed version is much cheaper than the self-propelled one. Second, the gun itself already exists. You only need to find a carriage for the towed configuration. That's where the Soviet Hyacinth B, Hyacinth B howitzers came in. Their carriages adapted perfectly to the Bohdana-B gun. And that's how Ukraine got its own towed howitzer, Bohdana-B, also known as 2P22 Bohdana-BG. According to available information, Ukraine has already developed its own authentic carriage that this towed gun will be mounted on. And I think very soon, we'll be able to show you what a purely Ukrainian gun looks like. For now, friends, we introduce you to this very 2P22 Bohdana BG, which is operating with the 47th Separate Artillery Brigade.
На тих самих 585.
Gun.
Fire. The gun is pretty good, accurate. There are some quirks, sure, but it's pleasant to work with. Lately, we've mostly been working against enemy infantry.
What distance?
Around 13 kilometers, roughly 8 miles.
And what's the maximum range?
Maximum is about 40 kilometers, around 25 miles, using rocket-assisted projectiles.
You know what I noticed? Compared to the guns we filmed before, like the Hyacinth B, this one operates much quieter.
Yes, it's significantly quieter. The muzzle and barrel compensator is different, built differently. That's why it sounds softer.
Have you worked with any other guns?
Before this, we had the Howitzer. In terms of accuracy, the Bohdana is better.
Weight?
Weight is 9.7 tons. That's roughly 21,400 pounds.
Length?
13.6 meters, about 44.6 feet.
That's with these stabilizer legs folded in, right? Roughly speaking, from the barrel to the very ends?
At one point, we thought about giving her a name, but we never came up with one. Still, her time will come, and she'll prove herself in one way or another.
Another important detail, since artillery today mostly hides in shelters like this, you can imagine how much effort it takes to dig a full revetment or a massive shelter for a self-propelled Bodana SPG, or to dig a position for a towed Bohdana, which is much smaller than the self-propelled version. A small detail, but a critical one. Let's imagine this. You walk into a store, and that store has every artillery system you can possibly imagine. What would you choose?
I'd probably choose the Bohdana. Why? Because of its simplicity of use and its accuracy, its precision in combat work.
Self-propelled or towed?
The towed gun.
You don't want the self-propelled version?
I don't want an SPG. It's bulky, very hard to camouflage. And I feel sorry for my people. It's extremely hard work with those systems. There's still a lot of work around this gun too, but it's an order of magnitude smaller. Fire!
How long have you been working together as this crew?
From the very beginning.
What, you're not tired of each other yet?
There are different moments.
Maybe you'd like to pass along some wishes.
To the designers?
To the designers, among others.
Install something here, like on the Howitzer.
You mean an automatic rammer?
Yes, like on the Howitzer. Better the way it's done on the Howitzer. It's more reliable.
Different situations happen. It would also be good if they thought through a way to tow it out of a trench using the barrel. Hook onto the barrel and pull it out of the position, or to rotate it 180 degrees. Sometimes it's really hard to drive in, and in some situations that kind of solution would be optimal.
Well, and a toilet. War is war, but lunch is on schedule.
Yes, 100%. That's sacred. Lunch is sacred.